Darkness crept in like a thief, shrouding Cristiano Ronaldo's mansion in an eerie silence. Suddenly, a phone call shattered the stillness. "Ronaldo, we know what you did," a low, gravelly voice growled. "And we're coming for you?" But what did they mean? And was his business partner, Marco, hiding a dark secret? Ronaldo's mind was racing as he tried to process the ominous message. Who was this mysterious caller, and what did they want from him? He tried to brush it off as a prank call, but the voice had sounded so menacing, so sinister. Ronaldo couldn't shake off the feeling that his life was in danger. Shadows of fame. As he sat in the dimly lit study, the glow of his phone casting eerie shadows across his desk, his thoughts swirled. His fame had brought him countless blessings, but it also made him a target. Over the years, Ronaldo had received his fair share of threats and strange messages, but this one felt different, personal, calculated, and deeply unsettling. He replayed the voice in his mind, its chilling cadence making his skin crawl. The room around him seemed to grow colder, the silence now oppressive. Ronaldo glanced at the framed photographs lining the walls. Moments of triumph, family, and friends. These were his sanctuary, the reminders of a life built on hard work and resilience. Yet now, they seemed like trophies under siege. Before he could dwell further, a knock at the door made him jump. The sound echoed through the mansion, slicing through the heavy silence. Cautiously, Ronaldo approached the door, his heart pounding. He peered through the peephole and saw a woman standing in the cold, shivering violently. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with desperation. He opened the door, and the story spilled from her lips in a rush, each word tinged with urgency and despair. A plea for help. "Please, Mr. Ronaldo," she begged, her voice trembling. "You have to help me. My family and I are homeless, and we have nowhere to go. We're sleeping on the streets, and it's getting colder by the day. Please, can you help us?" Her words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the life of luxury and security Ronaldo had always known. The woman's voice cracked as she continued, her story painting a vivid picture of loss and hardship. She explained that their house had burned down in an accidental fire 2 months prior, leaving her husband, and their 2 children destitute. Since then, they had been living on the streets, struggling to find shelter and food. She pointed toward a park not far from the mansion, where her family was waiting. Ronaldo's instincts kicked in. Despite the strange events of the evening, he couldn't ignore the raw human need in front of him. He asked her for her location, and she provided the address of a nearby park. Without hesitation, he grabbed his car keys and escorted her to the passenger seat of his sleek black SUV. Racing against the cold, the drive to the park was tense. The woman sat quietly beside him, clutching her coat tightly. Ronaldo's thoughts flickered between concern for her family and the earlier phone call. As he approached the park, he slowed down, scanning the area. There, beneath a cluster of trees, was a heartbreaking sight. A makeshift shelter of blankets and cardboard barely protecting 2 young children and an older man from the biting wind. The children huddled together, their tiny faces red from the cold. Ronaldo's heart sank. He stepped out of the car and approached the family. "Come on," he said gently, offering his hand to the man. "Let's get you somewhere warm." The family hesitated at first, overwhelmed by the sight of the world-famous footballer standing before them, but the sincerity in his voice reassured them. Together, they packed their meager belongings into the car, and Ronaldo drove them to his mansion. The woman, still in disbelief, whispered a quiet thank you as she buckled her children into the back seat. Her husband, a man with kind but weary eyes, nodded silently. His expression one of profound gratitude and humility. Ronaldo couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility for these strangers who had entrusted him with their lives in their moment of greatest need. A warm welcome. Back at the mansion, Ronaldo instructed his staff to prepare a guest room and bring hot food. The children's eyes widened as they stepped into the lavish home, their faces lighting up with awe. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers, and the warmth of the heated interior seemed almost magical after the biting cold of the park. The family was ushered into a dining room where a feast had been laid out. Soups, bread, roasted vegetables, and a selection of desserts. The children dug in with unrestrained delight, their laughter breaking the tension that had hung in the air all evening. The woman thanked Ronaldo profusely, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't know how to repay you," she said. "Don't think about that now," Ronaldo replied. "Let's focus on getting you and your family back on your feet." He watched as the children devoured their meal, their spirits lifting with each bite. For a moment, Ronaldo felt a sense of purpose that extended beyond fame or fortune. But just as peace seemed to settle over the house, his phone buzzed. The message was brief but chilling. "You think you're a hero, Ronaldo, but you're just a pawn in a much bigger game." Shadows in the night, Ronaldo's unease grew. Over the next few days, strange occurrences plagued the mansion. Late at night, he would hear footsteps in the hallways, only to find no one there. Doors creaked open on their own, and once, he found a shattered mirror in the living room with no sign of how it broke. The family, though grateful for his generosity, began to sense the tension. The mother expressed her concern one evening. "Mr. Ronaldo, we don't want to bring any trouble to your home," she said. "You're not the cause of this," Ronaldo assured her. "I'll handle it." Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Ronaldo enlisted his head of security, Alejandro, a former intelligence officer. Alejandro quickly discovered that the threatening messages were tied to burner phones and anonymous accounts, making them difficult to trace. However, he uncovered something curious. The mansion security footage showed a shadowy figure lurking near the gates at odd hours, always careful to avoid the cameras. Unmasking the betrayal, Alejandro's investigation eventually pointed to Marco, Ronaldo's trusted business partner. Ronaldo was reluctant to believe it at first, but the evidence was undeniable. Marco had been embezzling funds from Ronaldo's charity foundation, funneling the money into his own offshore accounts. The threatening messages and strange occurrences were part of a ploy to scare Ronaldo away from scrutinizing the charity's finances. The realization hit Ronaldo like a blow. Marco wasn't just a colleague. He was a friend, someone Ronaldo had laughed with, strategized with, and trusted implicitly. For days, Ronaldo wrestled with the weight of betrayal. The foundation had been his passion, a means to give back to the world and provide opportunities to those less fortunate. To think that someone so close had turned it into a personal piggy bank left him both furious and deeply hurt. One evening, after pacing his study for hours, Ronaldo decided there was no choice but to confront Marco. The meeting was arranged under the guise of discussing a new initiative, but Ronaldo's heart was pounding as he entered the sleek conference room. Marco greeted him with his usual charm, but Ronaldo couldn't meet his eyes. "I trusted you with everything," Ronaldo began, his voice calm but laced with anger. He slid a folder across the table. Its contents a damning compilation of bank transfers, emails, and false accounting records. Marco's confident demeanor faltered as he flipped through the pages, his hands trembling slightly. "You wouldn't understand," Marco finally said, his tone a mixture of defiance and desperation. "All that money and you don't even notice when it's gone." His words stung, but Ronaldo wasn't about to let the betrayal go unanswered. "You're wrong," Ronaldo shot back, his voice rising. "I notice everything, especially when it comes to helping others. You didn't just steal from me. You stole from people who needed that money to survive." The room fell silent, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. Marco, now cornered, leaned back in his chair, defeated. By the time the authorities arrived to take Marco into custody, Ronaldo felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. He had lost a trusted partner, but he refused to let that overshadow his mission. He vowed to restore the charity to its former glory, determined that no act of treachery would derail his efforts to make a difference. A new beginning. As the chaos settled, Ronaldo shifted his focus back to the homeless family he had taken in. Their story had lingered in his mind throughout the ordeal, a poignant reminder of why his charity work mattered. Over the next few weeks, he ensured they had everything they needed: clothes, food, medical care, and access to social services. Yet, he knew that temporary solutions weren't enough. One crisp morning, Ronaldo invited the family to his mansion's grand living room, where his team had prepared a surprise. On a large screen, images of a cozy, fully furnished house flashed, each room tailored to the family's needs. The woman gasped, covering her mouth with her hands as tears streamed down her face. Her children clung to her, their faces lighting up with pure joy. But Ronaldo wasn't done. From his pocket, he produced an envelope and handed it to the woman. Inside was a check for $1 million. The moment she saw the figure, her legs buckled, and she sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Ronaldo knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Why are you giving us so much, Mr. Ronaldo?" she choked out, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said softly. "You've shown incredible strength for your family. Now it's time for you to have some peace." His words were sincere, and for a moment, the burdens of the past few weeks felt lighter. As he watched the family embrace, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a final warning. Just as Ronaldo began to move forward, the shadows of the past returned. One evening, while reviewing plans for a new charitable initiative, he noticed a small envelope among his papers. The stationery was unlike anything he had seen before, crisp, elegant, and ominously formal. Opening it carefully, Ronaldo read the brief message. Marco wasn't acting alone. "Be careful who you trust." The words sent a chill down his spine. Unlike the earlier crude threats, this letter was deliberate and precise, its tone suggesting a far more sophisticated adversary. Ronaldo handed the letter to Alejandro, who immediately began analyzing its origin. Days turned into weeks as Alejandro combed through potential leads, but the trail seemed meticulously erased. Despite the lack of answers, Ronaldo's resolve hardened. Someone out there wanted to tear him down, to exploit his generosity and tarnish his reputation. But what they didn't realize was that Ronaldo had faced countless challenges, on the field and off, and emerged stronger every time. In the weeks that followed, Ronaldo doubled his security, both at home and within his organization. He held a meeting with his charity's board, implementing strict protocols to prevent future breaches. At the same time, he poured himself into his work, launching new programs and initiatives to ensure that the foundation continued to thrive. Though the source of the threat remained elusive, Ronaldo refused to live in fear. He knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was prepared to face them head-on. For every shadow that loomed over his life, his determination burned brighter, illuminating a path forward not just for himself, but for everyone who depended on him. And with that, Ronaldo embraced the uncertain future, his mind sharpened and his heart unyielding. The game was far from over, but he was ready to play.